Good morning, everyone. So let me jump right into it. How do we get teams to connect, create, and innovate beyond cultural lines? Today, we're going to discuss that and have a fireside discussion, share some ideas, some gems, if you will. My name is Paula Madison, Sierra Power Marketing at SF, and the host of 10 at 10. Thanks for joining us this morning. My continued mission is to share operational advice. Why would a marketer do that? Because marketing and operations is a love story. Marketing plans do not work if your operations isn't right. So I'm committed to sharing and bringing on great referral partners and networking buddies who can share great information with you to help your business thrive, especially now. My guest today is Janine Lafford. Janine is an award-winning educator, speaker, and the 2019 LA Lakers Businesswoman of the Year. Her company, Cafe Strategy, develops and facilitates intercultural and creative thinking training. And good morning, Janine. How
Good
are you
morning.
this morning?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you got to tell me how you first got into this business, and can you explain to the viewers intercultural creative thinking training? Share that with us, if you will.
I believe it is the next wave of the impactful training. If you remember, like the word empathy, hit the scene really hard, and now psychological safety are really big words. So I believe intercultural creativity is going to be the next big thing and hopefully permanent thing because creative thinking, per the World Economic Forum, is now the number one skill needed in the workforce. People bringing their creative ideas, creating value, and seeing what no one else sees, that is going to be the skill people are looking for as they rebuild their teams. But in my training, because I'm an educator
Yeah.
by trade, so I taught K-12. I even taught at our local university, California State University of Northridge, and I taught creative thinking, but also artistic thinking. And so when I left the classroom to really give the workforce some skills that I saw that my students were having and that they needed to retain into adulthood, I
Yeah,
realized that the workforce was missing these critical skills now. And
absolutely.
then the pandemic just really just expedited the need for this type of thinking and value creation.
The sad part is I don't think a lot of folks realize that the elimination of art and PE and all of those, that was part of the development skills that kids needed for creative processing. And we did eliminate quite a bit of that. What happens now when you go into the work environment and without those creative thinking processes, right? But
Right.
so what made you flip from, okay, this is something that I now want to do? What were you seeing that just made you say, okay, this is for me. I want to go from that to adult learners.
Well, because I had an interesting perspective of the pipeline, I taught K-5 and I still run a nonprofit for 6th through
Oh,
12th graders, and I taught at the university level. So in one week, I saw a 4-year-old all the way to a 64-year-old in the same week. So it gave me an interesting perspective. And so I saw the skills that people were using who were having a successful life. And I define successful like they're fulfilled. It's not just monetary success, but they're fulfilled, their identity is set, and they're able to create. And but the first step I do is I redefine creativity. A lot of people think creativity is only artistry, and
mhm.
that is a myth that is keeping a lot of people down. You have millions of people thinking that they're not creative because they can't sing like Whitney Houston, they can't dance like Justin Timberlake, and so they're saying out loud, and their subconscious is recording this, I'm not creative. And so I'm redefining it as creativity is the process of problem finding and problem solving with relevance, value, and novelty. And it shows up in all fields in business, in marketing, in science. It shows up wherever you are.
Exactly. And you really do need the skill to think your way out of the box, don't you? I mean, really, that's how you come up with the nuggets, right? To get out of the box. Actually, this rolls us right into because as I was going through and reading some stuff, yes, I was stalking you, girl. I was doing a little bit of reading. What are the seven gems? Can you go a little bit into that for the viewers today?
Sure. So I was doing a lot of speaking on creativity, and then I realized that you can train people to think creatively, but if they're in an environment that's not inclusive. There's no work going on the DEI work, the belonging work, the psychological safety work. Creativity is directly tied to psychological safety. I love your metaphor of the marriage, right, between operations and marketing. In cultural competence is in a love story with creative thinking. One directly affects the other. And cultural competence is your ability to be observant of other people with different lived experiences, to adapt your behavior accordingly in different cultural experiences. And when I say culture, I don't just mean ethnic culture or national culture. You can have a soccer mom culture or a tech culture. There's just different ways that people do things depending on the different types of groups that they're in.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't even think of it that way, but that makes perfect sense, right? I mean, really, I think I'm hoping that the viewers don't get stalled by the word culture today, because it's such a trigger word right now. It's like everyone goes straight to race, but really it's programming, right? It's like, you could be the same color, but have different cultures within that group as well, and how you do things. And that really does stop us to seeing the best in each other and what we all bring to the team. Really, at the end of the day, it's about being the best, right?
And
So,
that's the connection between creativity. For my instance, my husband is black, but he was born in Kingston, Jamaica,
oh,
and
me
like
too.
you, yes. And so going over his house, I was complete because I was born in Los Angeles, California, so I was completely just in the
Environment.
dark. They had AccuFit, they had games I've never played, they had food I've never eaten, oxtail, right?
Listen,
Um, and
oxtail's a real thing, man.
I know, and
Listen.
um, and he came here when he was 3, so he's basically Americanized. But his parents, and his older siblings are very much brought the Jamaican culture
Yeah.
with them. So that's a big thing. So I want people to understand when I say intercultural creativity, it's just people being creative together from different lived backgrounds. So it can be any of the demographics, the psychographics, just educational level, social educational level, and it could include of course, ethnicity, nationality,
Yeah,
especially on this global field that we're on now that the pandemic pushed
absolutely.
us into even more so.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think I mean, now that we're having bigger conversations about color and everything, I'm so happy that people are understanding, because you and I are Black doesn't make us really understand each other as culture, right? Because foundationally, I was brought up in Jamaica. I didn't come here until I was 16. So my foundation was set for a completely different place. You're brought up in Los Angeles, your foundation is set for that place as well. Two different countries, different cities, even New York, because when we came here, we were in New York. Those are two different cultures as well.
Yes.
And folks don't understand that even though you look alike, someone who's white who grew up in San Francisco versus Texas, those are two different cultures, two different people as well. You know what I mean? I remember going to a conference, and this one guy, we just connected. He was from Missouri, and he's like, just because I speak slow, don't people shouldn't think that I am slow. It's just culturally, that's the way I speak. I'm just kind of laid back, you know what I mean? And I'm like, it was like puts in such a great way. I'm like, yeah, of course, but we're making assumptions on everything. Like, how do we clean that out? Tell me about these gems, my dear.
And so before I get to the gyms, the
Oh,
point
okay.
is now we need all these people to come together and create together.
Yeah.
And so depending on your cultural lenses, there's so many ways you're seeing the world. I identify as a woman. I'm female. I'm African American. Lived a little bit in the South, mostly Los Angeles. I have a UCLA degree. So there's so many lenses that color the way that I see the world, that someone, like your friend who you met at the conference,
Yeah.
he may be in the same situation as me, but see the same exact situation differently because of the lenses that are coloring the way that of his role. So how do we come together and create? And that's what the 7 gems are about. So I'll go through them quickly. Feel free to jump in if you have
I'm
something to
I'm
say.
I'm excited because I love the way you put it, Janine, because really at the end of the day, what a win for a business if we can just get our team to sit down, because everyone looking at the problem at these different angles. Imagine what we could come up with if we could get some of the other stuff out of the way as well. But that's like
Yes.
a beautiful perspective from all.
There is research. I'm coming out with my book very soon. The 7 gems of intercultural creativity, and some of the research shows that if like let's say people from the Chinese culture, from the country of China,
Yeah.
and actually people from Western cultures, if they're both looking at the aquarium, they looked at thousands of subjects, and a lot of times people from Eastern cultures, they look at the background. But a lot of times, these are from Western cultures, we look at the foreground. So bringing different types of cultures and different types of perspectives and cognitive diversity on your teams allows you to see different things that one team of one, basic group is missing. Because if you're looking at the same things, it's great, but you're also missing the same thing. So intercultural creativity it increases innovation if you have the right skills to bring out those connectors, that Malcolm Gladwell talked about, and also you have the right skills to increase your creative thinking, because creative thinking is a skill, which means it can be developed, just like typing.
Yeah. Can I tell you something? One of the things that my ear just pick up, and I hope all the viewers heard this as well. This is commerce. This is good for your monies. Get the cultural part out of your head. Understand that this is about commerce. Great solutions are going to build your business. This is about making money. Really, at the end of the day, great business, great money, right? It's like, let's break it down to the basics, people. So that I wanted to make sure that you heard what Miss Janine just said.
Because in the end, you're communicating, right? You're trying to communicate a message. And so I keep saying, before we get to the gems, but I want to make this point. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. We should, we're having folks hang on. But
it's a meaty topic, right? I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot. They'll just have to get the book to get it all.
Thank you.
Though I say creativity isn't solely artistry, I believe artistry truly enhances your creative thinking in non-arts areas. So if you look at the top entrepreneurs, the top scientists, the Nobel Peace Prize winners, or just the Nobel Prize winners in science and engineering, a lot of them, almost 80% of them, have some type of arts background. And so I do this because you'll see in the gems, the arts help you fine tune these gems that I'm going to talk to you about. And so that's why you said in your point, it's really a huge injustice, not just a disservice, but an injustice when we strip arts education from children, but from people, adults, because you're stripping multiple methods of communicating and metaphorical thinking and transforming ideas into alternate methods of processing.
All I'm hearing is I need to get back to my sketching and painting. I haven't painted in a minute. It's like I used to paint all of the time. You couldn't stop me. And, of course, life happens and you move into like a different mental direction. But I'm realizing that stop period where I just kind of sit, grab a sketch pad and just draw something, whatever is in my head, is actually better for the rest of my day, Stop, take a breath, have a cup of tea, and do a little something,
There's so many benefits there. And you can just tell yourself, hey, this is helping me be a better businesswoman, a woman. If you have to say it that way, then just say it that way. But so to the gems.
I'm going to do
that. So I'm the diamond person. My logo for my company is the diamond. And because we do metaphors. So I'll be sending you a diamond treat. But because we believe everyone should shine bright light like a diamond. So what are the gems that help people shine bright like a diamond in whichever environment or workplace that they're in, or classroom or whatever? So I looked at the cognitive strategies under creative thinking and the same cognitive strategies under cultural competence. You have to be cultural competent to have an inclusive environment, and they're the same cognitive strategies. So that's how I laid them out in the gems. The first gem, mindset. Based off of the work of Carol Dweck, growth mindset, fixed mindset. So we call it creative growth mindset. If you don't believe you're creative, if you don't believe you can develop the skill of cultural competency, then your brain's not even going to try. And so getting people back into that position of, okay, I can do this. That's the first step. And that's the first gem.
It's like programming your brain then. The first step is getting your brain programmed. Nice.
Yes.
So that's just the simple step then is just to repeat that to yourself. No,
there's so many strategies. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
And, okay. So gem number 2.
Yes. Gem number two is, I call it the empathetic way. And, empathy is a big word in business, but empathy is huge in creative thinking, right? I sat down on my podcast with the author of The Billionaire Effect, how producers create massive value. And he sat down with 20 billionaires and looked for traits of thinking. The number one trait he listed was empathetic imagination. So,
Mm,
imagination is a creative skill. Empathy is a cultural competence skill, like an interpersonal skill, right?
right.
And so growing that empathy is huge, having an open mind and having an open heart. The number one indicator of a highly creative person is someone who has an open mind to new experiences. And the number one indicator of a highly cultural competent person is someone who is open to people with different lived experiences. So they go hand in hand.
Nice. I love that. Oh, okay, well, we're on, but I think Miss Janine just got kicked off accidentally. Um, the funny part is about going live, these things will happen. Janine, are you still there? I do not see you on my screen, my dear. Let me see if I can find you. Um, uh, yeah, oh, there you go. You're coming back in. I can see you coming back in. There you go. Let me show you back in the, um, there you go. You're coming in,
There we go.
and that's why they call it live.
Yes.
Live streaming stuff happens, folks. But something, even as a marketer, I tell my clients, by the way, do not be scared of this new world. Stuff's gonna happen and you just roll with it. So welcome back, Miss Janine.
Thank you. And that's actually, as an educator, we call them teachable moments, right?
Exactly.
And I'm actually glad it happened because a creative person knows how to improvise, right? Which is artistic skill, but a lot of people are bringing that improvisation training into the workforce. So there's a number one key there.
Yeah.
So the next gem is observation. Observation, cultural observation, and environmental observation. So number one, we don't know the fact that our observations, we're already at a deficit as humans. There's sounds we can't hear, right? That dogs can hear. There's things we can't see. There's microwaves and gamma waves and all these waves, infrared waves that we can't even detect with our senses. But are we dulling our senses even more? We have phones in front of our faces, right? We're not paying attention to the world around us. And a lot of your creative ideas, a lot of your innovative ideas and services come from people paying attention. There's a thing called biomimicry where they look at nature and science and get ideas for their businesses that way, like how things work and how things look. A lot
Absolutely.
of a lot of the inventions we have today are because someone paid attention to how nature was going,
Can I
right?
tell you my favorite? And I think you were there when I did that talk a couple of months, like a month ago, where we did the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the things that I loved in Stephen Covey's book was about nature, about trees. Once they sense each other because they're nearby, reaching out their roots to latch onto each other to help each other in storms and
Share resources, yes.
sharing resources. And I'm like, what a wonderful thing to have looked out at nature and go, why aren't we doing that as well as teams, relationship, parents, like husband, wives, like everything, church members, whatever. Why aren't we doing that as well? Because nature is, you're right, is kind of telling us all the reasons, right? And all the solutions. But
Yes.
we got to do a lot. We're humans. We're like, we got to do too much.
Yeah, so nature is a great example of
Yeah,
unified diversity, right? There's
absolutely.
diverse partners, but they're unified and they're connected. So we are, hopefully humans are working more towards that as well. So I look at mental observation, and we do a lot of training on that and getting people back to their bases of when you're an infant, you are very aware of your surroundings and using all of your senses to get information. That's why, infants even put things in their mouth because they're like, well, what does this taste like? But then we transfer it to cultural observation. Are you truly observing your work members, your team members? So the word observe doesn't just mean to see. Observe comes from the Latin and it means to attend to. So what are you giving your attention to? And if you're truly observing your colleagues and your team members and really just, looking for that cultural competency skills of seeing complexity within how they are having their lived experience, you're able to increase your empathy and your other gems that I'm going to explain.
I love that. I love that. So what, that's number three, yeah?
Yes, yes. So the fourth one is curiosity.
Mm.
And they say if creativity is the driver of innovation, curiosity is the driver of creativity. And so what does it mean to be curious? First of all, environmental curiosity, being curious about your environment, staying with something longer. Albert Einstein said, I'm not a genius. I'm just curious a lot longer than the average person because he stays with the problem and you do 360 questioning around it and you use your imagination, right? I do a lot of imagination training to get our imagination back to where it was when we were 3. I have a 3-year-old now, so trust me, it's there. Um, right? And but then also cultural curiosity. What does it mean to be curious about the people who you're working with without being offensive or without heading into microaggressions? You want to be kind, but be curious to learn more and to see people's lived experience. So know where you can get information from to really build this skill.
Nice. I love that actually. And seeing it from everyone, I think I right now I there's such a focus on people of color, but it's some now that we're having open conversations, we're realizing that everyone has some traumas, things that have happened to them,
Mhm.
successes, failures, that we should all be talking about together, that there's so much wealth to be brought to that table. So I really love that one. And what's our next one?
Our next one is a new term that people may not know about, but it is backed by brain science. And yes, I am the teacher that has tons of props, right?
I
When you
love
start your
the
when you start your career with children, you have to have things that we can touch. And I do the same thing with adults because just because you're adults doesn't mean you want to sit in a 2-hour lecture. Of course, you want to be engaged and interactive.
and
So I
now,
bring those same strategies into
and
my
now that we're
trainings
on
now.
Zoom so much, you definitely need some props
Yes.
sometimes.
Yes. So the fourth one is perspective shifting. And people may want to look up a doctor called Dr. Michael Platt. He's one of the top neuroscientists in the nation. And I actually had him on my podcast, episode 66 in the Create and Grow Rich podcast. And he talks about how perspective shifting is now one of the top skills for leaders, for everyone, but
Oh,
especially if you're leading people. And it's actually, we can see what happens in the brain when you're great at perspective shifting. The brain has certain networks going on. Your attention focus network, when you're doing bills and writing emails, your innovation network, when you're daydreaming and your imagination is bringing in those new ideas, but also your mentalizing network. And that's where you have the ability to perspective shift. Now, perspective shifting really is key when you have the other gems in place, when you're curious, when you're observant, when you're empathetic, and when you have the right mindset to be able to even do all of this work. So you see how all the gems are connected so far.
yeah, I love that. Because really, I think somewhere in the 90s, we just started not giving a lot of value to any kind of leadership training and the importance of leaders. We just started throwing anyone in there. But before, businesses, big corporate, even small corporate, would invest in their leaders because they knew that that would lead people to lead to commerce and doing a great, keep retaining talent. Somewhere along the road, some finance person decided that it would be best if we got rid of that. And it's been a disservice to corporate thinking in America for a long time, I've said. So I love that a lot of leaders are getting back to that right now and realizing that that is an important trait, you know?
Yes, yes. You said it right. Around the 90s or so, we looked at profit over people, right? There was I forgot his name, but he was a man in the 80s or 90s that really put out the message that your company's goal,
Mhm,
profit, profit, profit. Everyone else is a cog in the machine.
mhm.
Your bottom line is the only thing you should be focused on. And so that's where you saw leaders not really be trained in a lot of these areas. But now people are realizing, wait, there's more to leadership than just getting the production out of people. We really need to make sure we have psychologically safe environments and people are creatively able to produce and give value from their own perspective as well. And so,
Yeah.
and that ties me into the next gem, which is authentic adaptation. Someone who is highly creative and someone who is highly culturally competent, they're able to adapt well to different cultural situations. Do you have that friend that no matter which cultural group they're in, or which quote unquote like high school clique they're in, they're just able to just vibe well and just connect well?
Yeah.
That is a skill, right? That not everyone can do. And so I say authentic adaptation because you still want to be authentic to your core values. And in order to be authentic to your core values, you need to know what your core values are. And so a lot of, you'll see a rise in corporate training, a lot of self-awareness work, self-reflection work, core value work, where people have that introspection work going on first before they can lead well externally.
Oh no, absolutely. I love that. It's about being real, right? It's being your true self, right? At the end of the day, you know? And this is the last one. This is our number
Yes,
seven.
this
Our
this is
seven.
this is where people want to get to. I call it being the bridge, right? And in Malcolm Gladwell's book, he talks about being the connector. And the connector is someone, like kind of like I mentioned, as far as the authentic adaptation, is someone who can sit on that boundary lines, right? And they're able to connect. I do use myself as an example because I'm an educator by trade, and I'm an elementary school educator by trade, but I've been in entrepreneurship, and now I'm an entrepreneur. I was taking entrepreneurship classes while teaching. We're in the hard sciences. My brother works for NASA, so I'm very much connected to that. And just I would go and take cooking class. I was just in every field, but still a great educator because that's my main field. And so businesses are going to start looking for people who are boundary riders, and they have at least some type of connection to other types of fields. And there's a great book called The Medici Effect,
Mhm.
which looked at how innovation happens at the intersection of fields, disciplines, and cultures. It's at the intersection of these. And so if you're one person who only does, like I am an astrophysicist and I do nothing else except that, that's all you're focused on. So you're not able to look at what you do through other lenses, through other experiences. Like, what does it mean to do that as a writer? Like how are you going to do what you do with a different lens? Or just the connections are need to be there in order to have those new creative ideas to move us forward.
No, absolutely. And all right, so we're getting close to time, but like this book, I'm excited about reading the book when it comes. When's your book coming out? What's the name of the book? Tell us about it. Where are we going to be able to get it?
Sure, sure. Well, the name of the book is called The Seven Gems of Intercultural Creativity. I looked online. The intercultural creativity name has not been used at all. So of course I snagged it, marking it. And but it's the Seven Gems of Intercultural Creativity, how to connect, create, and innovate across cultural lines, a lot like the title of this show. And it'll be on my website at cafestrategies.com, CAFFE strategies.com, and on Amazon as well. But it's in editing phase now. So hopefully it'll be out within the next month or two. And it's just really showing people with funny stories. I'm a storyteller, so I have to have stories throughout that carry the points. Just how, if your company or if you are not working on your ability to diversify, number one, but diversify with inclusion, belonging, and psychological safety, you're directly lowering the creative potential of yourself and your organization. So
Uh,
what does that look like, and how do we work on that going forward for this next era?
nice. And any final thoughts as we're wrapping up?
Well, my quote, because I was really big in financial literacy as well, is your creative health does affect your financial wealth, but it affects so many other areas, your relationship wealth, your fulfillment wealth, just it affects your wealth of living. So your creative health, your ability to produce new ideas and contribute to the fabric of the society affects so many areas. So be your best interculturally creative self today.
I love that. Thank you so much, Miss Lafford, for being on the show. I didn't really make the tie in until we started having the conversation about really this is about building a great business on the commerce side as well, because when people are literally happy to show up at work, that brings so much wealth to a business, isn't it? So thank you so much for being on the show today. To the viewers, you know my battle cry, all of COVID, fight obscurity and stay visible. These videos are not meant to be a replacement for professional advice. Please reach out to my guests. If you're looking for marketing advice, please reach out to me at powermarketingsf.com. We're on every Thursday at 10 a.m. with, live with different referral partners and different topics. We have business coaches coming up. We have a sales coach coming up. We have actually someone who just wrote a book on networking, foundational networking. So that's going to be interesting as well. Please keep clicking in. You continue to amaze me. Thanks for sharing and liking. I appreciate you guys so much. Take care, everyone. And thanks again, Janine. Have a great rest of the day, everyone. And as always, keep moving forward.
Thank you.